What's up, everybody? How you doing? I hope you're having a good start to your new year. This is going to be my video on how to get stuck. In other words, how to guarantee that you are not making progress in any domain that you care about. A lot of the examples I'll be giving throughout this video will be poker related, but this really applies to any area of your life. If you're finding yourself in a place in your life where you feel stuck, you're not moving forward, you're not making progress, I guarantee you're doing at least some of these things. My name is Alderman. I'm a performance coach, and let's jump right into it. Point number one is focusing on decisions, not process. What I mean by this is we are focused too much on trying to improve a particular decision we're making, and we're not focused enough on what the process is that's leading us there. A good example in poker is maybe we feel like we're getting run over in certain spots, so we just need to start calling or raising more. And then we just focus on calling and raising more, and not the context in which that decision is taking place, and not the process that's leading us to decide calling and raising is a good decision. This can result in one of two things. Either we don't actually make the change because our process is still leading us to the same conclusions, or we arbitrarily make the change in situations where it may or may not be appropriate, and then that discourages us from doing it again because we feel like when we do it, we get it wrong. Focusing on process will often mean a slower arc of trying to make the change that you want, but it will result in a more permanent and more useful change to that. When we change the way that we approach something, we learn more from the mistakes that we're making, and it will take longer for that to seep in, but when it seeps in, it will be far more grounded in reality, and it will be more accessible to us to make those changes for the long term. Okay, point number two is black and white thinking. People who are not learning the maximum are often looking at decisions through a very black and white lens. This was either a good decision or a bad one. And in poker, as in many things in life, the answer to that question is a mystery. Whether something was the most useful for you or the least useful for you is based on its complete context. And in poker, and again in life, the complete context is a mystery. We don't really know what people are doing. We don't really know all of the things and all of the ways things would have gone differently had we done things differently. When we focus on process, the information is far more within hand. We have all that information. We know what we're thinking. The second thing is, in any process, you're going to have a whole spectrum of was this useful or not. We should just even take the words good and bad and put it out of our vocabulary. Because when something's useful, almost every way of thinking about something is useful in some context. There may be some that are just generally we should just not approach at all, but other than that, it will more be about the situation we're in and how appropriate it was for this context. We need to do a better job at not rating our process by good or bad. What were the useful elements? What were the least useful ones? Which ones could I have included in this process and which ones maybe I could have left out in this moment? That does not mean in every moment. And the more you do this, you gain a more fine-tuned ability to adjust the way that you think, and you become very skilled in having a dynamic process that applies to the situation you're in. All right, the third way to make sure you get stuck and don't improve is to surround yourself with people who don't do either of the last two things I mentioned. I'm not a Christian, but one of my favorite quotes from the Bible is bad company corrupts good character. Surrounding yourself with people who don't do either of the things I talked about are eventually going to pull you into their way of thinking. We are very cultural creatures. We really try to line ourselves up with the status quo of the social group we align ourselves with. If you're in a group of poker players or in life of people who are constantly putting a lot of emphasis on making the right or wrong decision and who are very prone to black and white thinking, get out of it. Find yourself a group of more nuanced, more process-centered people. One, you'll find yourself just being happier. These people are generally more forgiving, more understanding, kinder. But on top of that, you will also improve in most areas of your life when this is the status quo of how to approach these decisions. Seek out and try to be around other people who approach life and decisions in this way. Now, I'm sure there are lots of deep friends you have that are really important to you. Great. Bring these ideas to them, and all of you together commit to changing the way you approach poker or any other thing in your life. All right, point number 4, never take risks. One of the main things that people who get stuck and why they don't improve is because they're incredibly risk averse. Risk averse not necessarily in the objective metrics of their risk, but in doing things that break their mold, that step out of what they feel comfortable doing. All the time, you will take a risk, and it will be an idiotic risk. Like the decision will just be crazy. I do this all the time. If you watch my streams, I make decisions that are so absurd often. The utility in this, though, is I get a ton of feedback. Not only that, I am capable and I build confidence in my ability to take risks. There's nothing more useful to you than being willing to make very outlandish decisions, and when they doesn't go right, being willing to take feedback from it. You don't want to just take risks and defend it as great, but you also don't want to not take risks because they might be bad. You want to do both. You want to be willing to take risks at any moment, and you just want to gather the feedback from what happens from that, because you might find that some of the risks you take actually aren't that crazy. They just seemed crazy to you. And over time, you will filter out the things that are just insane decisions, and we should just not do that again. And you'll get a better dial on these things many people avoid doing but are totally fine. This is exceptionally true within poker. As with anything, it is very normal for groups of people to kind of settle in a kind of meta. And you see this in poker all the time. And then the people who are willing to question this and break the mold can find new strategies that dominate. If you're not willing to be someone who takes these risks, you're never going to be one of those people. All right, guys, point number 5 is extremely important, but probably the most difficult, which is never working on the behaviors and feelings that get in your way of these things. When you go to try to focus on process and not decisions, there's a reason you're focusing on decisions, and it will be uncomfortable to focus on process. It's our responsibility to start asking ourselves, why? Do I associate too much of my self-worth on making the right decisions? On the thing that's external, the decision, do I expect people to see that and think good things of me? Whereas the thing that's internal, my process, do I not feel enough confidence in who I am to focus on that? Black and white thinking. Why does this feel so comfortable? Why is it so easy to just have a clear yes or no answer? Am I that uncomfortable with the grayness of life and everything else? And then do I want to surround myself with people who do many of the same things? Does that feel comforting to me? And does risk-taking, even in areas that don't actually threaten anything to me, why does it feel so vulnerable to take a risk about something that isn't actually that dangerous when it's just a decision at a poker table? These questions are the really important things we need answers to. And starting to orient around those questions and being really curious about ourselves, really interested and very kind to ourselves about whatever those answers are, that's the secret to you living the life that you want and to finding the relationship with anything you want that is truly rewarding. All right, guys, I really went through that quickly. I was torn between it being a more elaborate video where I kind of gave examples and really dove into things, or just kind of a quick video on 5 things that hopefully you can digest and take in. If you liked this and you want more and more descriptions of kind of how to do these things, please let me know in the comments below, but definitely like and subscribe for more content like this from me. And if you're looking for coaching, jaredalderman.com is my website, and I would love to hear from you. Have a nice day.